Making your way through work Monday takes everything you got. Then Monday night rolls around and you realize there's a shot. You're only 10 points away. All those times when your team had no fight, they're just so gosh darn frail. Then your star quarterback let another deep ball sail, and your third round pick bet on his team. Then go check out our streets where everybody knows your pain, and they listen to complaints. You wanna be where you can see our bodies bring you no shame. You wanna go where everybody knows your pain.
Welcome into another episode of Dad Bod Fantasy Squad. I am here currently with Robbie. What's up, dude?
Not much, brother. How you doing?
Doing good. I saw you on live last night. You got some sun. It does look like it's already started to fade, which is kind of how like that quick sun, quick weekend, sort of.
Yeah, it's quick. I got a nice little base tan. You know, we got the Italian skin, so it holds up a little bit, but it'll be gone in like 3 weeks.
Dude, mine's been fading. My Italian skin, it's been like, it doesn't hold the tan as well.
It's because we're in Ohio.
I also think it's because I'm inside too much.
Working from home's really killing you, dude.
Yeah. Dude, I'm just wasting away. My life expectancy went from like maybe 80, you know, that good wine, blood, good working out every day, work from home, down to 55.
Yeah, he was just saying how he's literally right before the podcast. He was saying how, well, I work from home. I don't see anybody, so I'm just going to let my hair grow out. I don't really care anymore.
I'm washed. I am going to get a trim, dude. It's
thrown in the towel already.
Yeah, got married and I'm washed. I'm trying to compose this tweet because for whatever reason, Twitter, it sucks for our viewers that can't. I don't know why we don't get the Twitter comments. It never makes sense to me. It bothers me so much.
It's weird.
Also joining us today is Rob Norton. Norton, are we better?
I think so. Is it going better?
I was
gonna say it definitely seems a lot quicker. Like when I first loaded in, it took forever just to get into the Discord, and I was like, "Oh, this is not gonna be good." Never happened to me like that before.
Yeah, it was. You were a little laggy, but we took care of it.
There we go.
Took care of it.
Go ahead, hit that again, Rob. My bad, I closed it.
What
up, Albert?
Yeah,
we got a good show today, man. We got some Monday Night Football, fun ending, boring game, fun ending.
Yeah,
dude. I like. Wait, we'll get into it. We got some waiver wire ads. We're probably going to go through those quick because I felt like there's a lot of Dynasty talk that I wanted to have. And I definitely wanted to get to that. So we have Monday Night Football waiver wires and Dynasty chat. But Monday Night Football, let's just roll right into this.
Let's do it.
Tampa Bay ended up squeaking it out. 17-16. Barely.
They don't look good.
They don't, dude.
Not at all.
And this is like I don't want to forget who Brady is, right? Like, you don't want to forget who Tom Brady is. And I'm like a Tom Brady hater, and I know his greatness. Is there a path where he comes in playoffs mode and just starts balling? Or would we have saw that last night?
Me personally, I don't think it's solely on him. I truly think it's coaching. And something's off. Like I don't think it's him personally. You saw him on the sidelines. Like he was freaking out at one point because they're just not on the same page. Nobody's on the same page on the whole team. The defense is playing fine. They look good actually. The defense is pretty solid. But the offense as a whole, just to me, watching it as like an outsider, because we just watched them last week too with the Browns. They just look like they're completely on different pages. and I don't want to say it's on Brady. Like, I think it's a collective mishmash of just not working.
I actually saw somebody maybe this is too much, but I did see somebody like say Byron Leftwich would make a good head coach, and I'm not
He was getting
so
looks
convinced.
this offseason.
I'm not so convinced of that, man. This offense is bland, and I get it. Their offensive line is a little rough right now, and Bowles is the head coach, so he should be the one that's like I think he deserves the most. I don't know what the word is. Hate. Like he's been a little bit rough.
Yeah, personally, I think it's you take Bruce Arians away, that mastermind of offense, out of that system. I think maybe Byron Leftwich had too much of the, like the last couple seasons. I think everyone wanted to say it was Byron Leftwich was calling the game plan and all this sort of stuff. I think it was really Bruce Arians.
Dude,
now
Bruce
we
Arians
see
is a great coach.
you take him
Yes,
away.
for
Look
sure.
at what's going on with the offense. They're struggling to put up 20 points. I think that's the main reason is like Bruce Arians knew what he was doing. He knew how to handle the offense. He got everybody on the same page, and they were putting up 40 points a week. Now you have Byron Leftwich running the show. It's just not the same.
It's been rough. Let's kick off with Tampa Bay side of things because Albert asked a great question here. And Norton, I'll have you start this one off. What do you make of the Tampa backfield now? I have my thoughts on this, but I wanted you to kick it off on here.
So for me, it feels like another committee at this point. It feels like but it feels like a 2-man committee at this point. I mean, to me, it's fine when you have two. Most backfields have exactly
25 out of 32, probably.
Probably. I was gonna say it's probably just a handful, maybe 7, 8, like workhorse guys. Like, so having two is not bad if it's kind of strictly two, especially if both are involved as
probably be.
Yeah, and especially if both are involved as pass catchers, which both look to be heavily involved, which I mean makes sense with Brady. That's why it's why I loved Fournette early in the season, was getting the full workload of that kind of looks, and then now obviously it's a split. I kind of think for me it's like I'm gonna rank Rachaad White ahead. He's basically, if they're getting, because there's no denying that Rachaad White is like the better talent at this point, more explosive. Yeah, I know. I was trying to
You're trying to keep it going.
Yeah, but he's no doubt that White is kind of the more explosive, obviously younger, more talented guy at this point. And if they're both going to be getting a similar workload, I'll take the more efficient, more explosive guy. That being said, I think both of them are like RB2 flex range, especially on this week when you got a bunch of buys. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm looking at.
I'm with you. Like, I think they're both very worthy of a start, especially as your RB2. Like, if Rachaad White, like, let's talk about what I do in Dynasty a lot. And I say, screw the RB2 position. And I try to put it together with like 8 different RBs on my bench. Rachaad White just fills right into that role. And I'm happy about it. Like, It seems, as what we saw last night, this is should receive anywhere from 10 to 14 to 15 opportunities a game, somewhere around there. So like, and that goes for both of them, the way that Brady's throwing. And I think this could segue us into the next question about this team. The way Brady is throwing the ball, which is, he does take his deep shots. He's missing. He missed I think it was Mike Evans last night, at least once. And he got pissed. Like Robbie was saying at the start of this, they're a little bit off everywhere. And so he is checking down a lot, which he always has, but even more now. I mean, like, the two of them combined for what? Was it 12 receptions last night?
Yeah, probably like, I think it was like even like 13, 14.
8 targets for Rachaad White. He had 6 catches. And I think Lenny was
15, yeah.
15 targets. And then how many? Like, that's 12 targets probably.
Yeah. It's like,
yeah, Lenny had 7. He had 8. That's 15. 6 plus 6. They had 12 receptions between the two of them. That's a ton.
Yeah, I think it's honestly it was underestimated, like how big of a loss too that Gronk and Antonio Brown I mean, like we were talking about loss of Bruce Arians. I mean, you lose Bruce Arians, you lose Gronk, you lose AB, and you deal with a rough offensive line. I mean, that's a lot to change, and I think it was kind of underestimated.
There was a couple of offensive linemen that retired last season.
Yeah, so it's
And
like
signed away.
Marpet.
Yeah.
Jansen got signed away. I mean, some big key losses.
Yeah, so I think honestly, like, I don't think we gave enough like credit to how much all of that combined was gonna affect heading in. I think it was just like, oh, well, we got Brady, we still got Leftwich there calling shots, and Brady's gonna do what he's doing. He's slinging it, and I think as a whole, like the whole fantasy community, really, we're just kind of too high on what we saw last year, not giving enough credit to the amount of loss they had.
The real question is, and I think we'll get to New Orleans side. Godwin obviously looks pretty much back to 100%, right? He's finally, really the past, I think 2 or 3 weeks, he's really looked good. But Mike Evans has been struggling. Is there even and it could be a quick no. Is there even anything outside of injury that would happen with Mike Evans in the next 3 to 4 games that you would be like, it's time to bench him?
Depending on your roster construct, I wouldn't be opposed to it. I mean, if you got Garrett Wilson or, some of those lower draft picks to plug in, I don't see why not. I mean, he has finished, let's see.
It's been bad. It's been bad the past at least 3 weeks.
Last 4 weeks, wide receiver 34, 40, 75, 43.
Oof.
Yeah, I mean, it's time to talk about it.
Ooh, that's a string of them.
Yeah, I think what Rob said makes sense. Like, if you have it's going to be probably tough to do, but if you have like a situation where you have a couple of like the later draft picks that hit, like a Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, like if you had like both of those guys plus like, an early guy or two, then
DK Metcalf. That's
right. Or you have Lockett, because Lockett went late.
You guys are like saying that you would bench him in your flex as well. It's pretty much what both of you are getting at.
If you had like that kind of situation. Yeah. Like if you had, like, say you drafted Garrett Wilson, Lockett, and Olave, and then you have, and it was like a 2 receiver in a flex league. Like, I'd want to start all 3 of those over him right now.
Let me paint this picture too.
Or you pick up Christian Watson. Like, I'm playing Christian Watson over him right now.
I don't think he is not available.
Well, I'm saying, like, if you did pick him up in free agency.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a path to it.
Evans' last 4 games, though, and you know me, I love to look at matchups and kind of hopefully see maybe where we're going wrong here. Ramsey with the Rams. I know he hasn't been the Ramsey of old, whatever. What's the rookie's name in Seattle? The cornerback?
Worrell, Tariq something. Wooten.
Yeah. He saw Wooten in Seattle. Cleveland's been playing better defense, and Ward's been playing better. And then last week, last night, there was no Lattimore, so really I expected him to go crazy when he did it.
Yeah.
But their defense ain't bad.
Right.
It's mid.
I don't know, man. Doesn't look good.
It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to bench him, but it's really situational dependent.
I just am worried that we're saying to bench him, but then he goes San Fran next week. That'll be a tough matchup. I guess that would be the one where I'd be like, yeah, maybe you bench him there. But then we got Cincy, Arizona, and then Carolina. Even though Carolina's got JC Horn, I don't know how much he shadows. It's not like those 3 defenses aren't great. And that's right in the playoffs. And we're going to be like starting to be out on him, and then he's going to catch fire. I don't know. I am not ready to bench him, I guess. And I'm expecting him to have a down week next week as well. I guess what's going to happen is you're going to have to make that decision during playoffs or next week, and it may burn you. Is really what I'm getting at.
Yeah, it might, and it's tough too because this week there's 6 teams on bye, so it's you
got to throw them in. Probably
you're probably in a situation
so cool.
where you're. Yeah, I know, right?
What is the NFL doing?
So it was weird because wasn't it like not last week had 2 teams, and then like, the
Thanksgiving
week
week.
before was like nothing.
Yeah.
And it's like, what is going on?
Thanksgiving. I think Thanksgiving week they did nothing for that reason.
Right.
Which I actually do appreciate that, right? I want the full slate of Sunday games as well as my Thanksgiving. I want my cake and I want to eat it too.
Exactly.
Why is
But
that so hard?
Right. But then like they should have just done the 6 teams on by last week.
Yes.
Like,
I
and then
agree.
2 on this week, if you're gonna do any on this week.
Especially because all those Thursday games, like,
Yeah.
do it. Let them have an extra break. I don't know. New Orleans, the 2 guys that we're going to talk about here real quick. Kamara, are we worried about him moving forward, Rob?
I've always been worried about Kamara.
We've been pretty down on him.
Yeah, I'm just not.
We were a
sold
little
on
bit
him.
more up with Dalton, but what's going on now? They're not passing him the ball.
Yeah, their offense sucks, dude. Like, that's what it boils down to.
It really
He's on a
is.
bad offense. He's gonna be limited.
And honestly, Ingram looked decent until he got hurt. Like he wasn't running bad. Kamara would just get stuffed every time.
Yeah. It was the weirdest part. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, which is disheartening if you have Kamara and you're like watching Ingram kind of get, he fought through for like 3 or 4 yards. I guess that's his running style compared to Kamara's, who would just get kind of stuffed. So I guess there's a difference in running style that Ingram could get those, extra 2 or 3 yards. It's not like he was crushing it or anything. Go ahead, Norton. Sorry.
You're good. The weirdest part to me, I haven't looked at the snap count, but I mean, just between the touches, Ingram had 7 carries, Kamara 12, but then Ingram had 5 targets and 5 receptions to Kamara's 3 targets and 2 receptions. Like, it's just really weird.
59 for Kamara. I don't know what was going on last night.
It's so weird. Like
42 for Ingram.
Yeah, and like not only that, but Ingram was coming off of injury too. So I don't know what was going on. I don't know if maybe Kamara's a little banged up and we didn't really know. Like it wasn't like kind of reported. Maybe he was like a little sore or a little banged up and they didn't want to overwork him. I don't know. But it was definitely weird that all of a sudden Ingram got like 40% of snaps and like almost half the work. It was weird.
It makes no sense. Yeah, I mean, Kamara is somebody that I would be more open to benching Kamara than I would Evans.
Yeah,
because I do think you're at that point where you just kind of have to figure out what you're doing for playoffs. And like, he hasn't scored. He has 3 touchdowns, and I think they all came from the same week on the season.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. Like, really, like how Rob said with that offense, it's so bad.
Yeah,
it's like, who do you want to play in this offense? Really, I mean, there's 2 guys you're really considering on a weekly basis, and that's about it.
Good lead into the next question. Is Olave going to be crushing it for your playoffs going forward? I mean, he had a pretty solid night. I think he had about 12 points. The dude, just every catch he makes, it looks good. And you see him open quite a bit. 10.5 is what he had. He went 4 for 65, no TDs. Only 3 TDs on the year.
Yeah, I think it's going to be tough slating. Like, you can't expect him to put up what he was at the beginning of the season. It's been not great lately. Last 5, I mean, you could go back last 6 weeks. Wide receiver 42, 22, 59, 7. He had a good week, and then 39, 39. So it's been not good the last month and a half. And that's, again, I think it just all boils down to the offense is just not good right now. So the opportunities, like, he's going to get peppered with targets. Like, we know that. He's going to get 12 targets a game. That's fine. The offense isn't getting down in the red. He's not going to score.
Yeah.
As I say, the ceiling is really weird because, like, even when I was looking back at it here and seeing like his performances, and like he's scoring double digits nearly every week in a full PPR format. Like he's getting like 10, 11, 24, 7, 13, 10, 20, 15, 16, 26, 11, 9.
Consistent.
Yeah, he's only had single digits twice really all year. So like he feels like a safe guy, but like
flex,
is,
like him in my flex, I'm completely fine with.
And like the matchups coming up after the bye are real nice too. Atlanta and Cleveland secondary. I mean, Cleveland's been playing better, but Atlanta obviously is horrible. So that's a nice first week of the playoffs matchup.
Yeah. To speak on that a little bit more, goes to Cleveland then Philly.
Yeah, as I say, The Philly one could be tough.
I need to see more on Cleveland. You're right. But like we could be looking at week 16 like, ah shit, dude, they're playing better now. But they always bust plays open. It's hard being a Cleveland fan. I don't know if I'm thinking clearly on shit.
That's usually how it goes, right?
Yeah, like I have no clue. Yeah, I think we could look back at that and be like, I want to start in my first week, and then I'm gonna kind of sit quiet from here forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough.
But if he's, I don't know. They're not even playing for playoffs anymore. They might do a QB change at the end of the year. Who knows? We spend a lot of time on this game. Let's get into some waivers. And here's how we'll kind of approach this. I'll read them off. I'll give the percentage, give their matchup. And then starting with you, Norton, I'm going to ask your favorite one on the week. And then we'll go to the next position. Then I'll go to you, Robbie, kind of bounce back and forth. And if you guys have anything to add in between, let me know. Cool.
Sounds like a plan.
We kind of get through this so we can do Dynasty talk. All right. So the QBs. Norton, the list you put together here, Jared Goff, 50% versus Minnesota. Ryan Tannehill, 18% versus Jacksonville. Tyler Huntley, 2% at Pittsburgh. Russell Wilson, 51% versus Kansas City. Kenny Pickett, 13% versus Baltimore. And then Derek Carr, 67% at Los Angeles Rams. Who is your favorite one to target if you need a QB this week?
There's two for me that are really close, but I think
hope you nailed the two that I really love right now.
Okay. It's Goff and Carr for me, but like Goff is the guy for me.
House roast in my headband. Like I don't look like every soccer player that's you've been watching on TV.
That's funny. No, yeah. Goff though, versus Minnesota is like the guy for me. He looked awesome this past week, and looks like Swift is healthier, which helps that offense go. Gives them another weapon in the passing game. Amon-Ra's been just a straight up stud. Like he's been ridiculous, and they have a defense that allows yards and points. So they're playing in a dome. Minnesota's a good offense. The secondary's not very good. Like everything's pointing up for Goff.
I love Goff this week, and I feel like it's gonna burn me, dude. Everything reminds of the Detroit-Seattle game for this week.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Everything gives the same vibes.
I know.
So I had to load that DFS lineup because when I looked at that week's winner, it was all Detroit and Seattle and like two other guys. I was like, I'm copying this. Eventually, this will work.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, dude, I was looking at it too. I'm pretty sure like the early game totals, like this is by far and away the high. Like
it's 53 right now.
Yeah, and I don't think any other game is even at 50. Oh no, Dolphins Chargers.
Game, I think. Oh, it was Dolphins Chargers.
Yeah,
Wasn't
Dolphins Chargers.
Cleveland game kind of high too.
47.
Which is
47.
high.
Yeah, well,
I mean that's solid.
Anything above like 47 or above is like pretty good on a week, but like when you're looking at 53, it's like damn.
Yeah,
but
let's do this. Let's load it. And like this is it's one of those things. It's either obviously it's one of two things. It's either gonna look too obvious, and like and you look back at it and you're like, duh, I should have did this, or it's gonna completely whiff and screw everyone. It always works that way.
It really is. And then when I know you were talking about with DraftKings too. And the reason I was saying it was by far and away the highest was obviously on the main slate, the Chargers Dolphins game isn't going to be on that one. So
because it's
a Sunday night.
Sunday night.
Yeah. So and that one's 52. Yeah. So that's why I was like, but yeah, that's the only other one above 50. And then I think this next highest on the slate is 47. So like a 6-point gap just between one game. Like that's huge.
Yeah.
Usually they're all jumbled in pretty good amount. Like this past week, I think there were like 3 above 50. So like, yeah, that game.
This past week there was 3 above 50.
Yeah, there was
really?
3. I believe so. I believe there was 3. Jags Lions was 51. 53 for Chiefs Bengals.
The Lions are playing for playoffs. It's kind of a long shot, but like good for them. Weird that they get rid of TJ Hawk and then this happens. Feel bad for the guy, although he sounds happy in Minnesota. Definitely 10-2. But
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm sure he's doing all right.
yeah. Norton, who's that second guy you mentioned?
Carr, for me, he's yeah. I figured it probably wasn't the one that you were thinking. He's more rostered.
Go ahead.
Yeah, he's more. Yeah, so
I have some Huntley love. I mean,
I do like Huntley.
I hope House is still watching against that shitty secondary. But the problem is, like, Huntley doesn't. This ain't the same Huntley coming in.
legs.
Like, he doesn't have Marquise Brown. He has, although Marquise Brown was out there in that time.
He might have been, yeah, because I'm pretty sure. Like, I remember Huntley was just peppering Mark Andrews.
Yeah,
I think it's and Demarcus Robinson might be a sneaky ad. I don't know if he's on your wide receiver. I haven't looked. He is good. Yeah. He might be sneaky. All right. No, I like Goff a lot. Robbie, did you have anything to add on the QBs?
No, not at all. I'm Goff is the guy this week. He's got his weapons back. It's Goff.
Yeah. And I think it's Swift season too. Anyways, running backs. Zonovan Knight or Bam Knight at Buffalo, 47% if he is out there. Ooh, baby. Cam Akers, 46% versus Las Vegas. James Cook, this is a sneaky one, 23% versus the Jets. Although Jets are a little bit tougher. Jarrett McKinnon, 41% at Denver. DJ Dallas, 4% versus Carolina. I'm going to add a / Travis Homer if healthy, because I think he was out for illness. Chuba Hubbard. I think Travis Homer might be the guy that gets the work healthy. Chuba Hubbard, 19% at Seattle. Robbie, who's your favorite one here? Who's the one you're targeting?
As much as I hate it, Cam Akers. I don't like it a lot. I think Zonovan Knight's going to be gone in most.
I pretty much agree. Like
leagues,
Robbie,
that's why I would
Norton
say
has him on here because he's under 50%.
Yeah, I would say him. I think most competitive leagues he's probably gone. DJ Dallas is definitely interesting against Carolina. They give up a ton of yards, so I don't hate that. But out of this list, I'm going Cam Akers.
Huntley had 3 turnovers last time he played Pittsburgh, so stop it, Mario. House, you'll have to explain the PGH. I always know what you're talking about, but is it just Pittsburgh? Is because I don't. Am I missing something?
It threw me off for a second, but I knew what he was
all the time. I always know what he's saying though.
Must be a Pittsburgh thing.
Why not just say Pitt?
They're too classy for that, apparently.
Norton, did you have any that you wanted to make a note of here?
I mean, Zonovan was the one that like would be top for me, but at the same time, like obviously, like you guys mentioned, he's definitely the most rostered on the list. Really,
there's probably 53% of inactive leagues.
Honestly might be. That's the thing. So like he's interesting. Obviously, I mean Carter should be back. Might be back this week, so we'll have to keep an eye on that, and that could cut into his workload. But honestly, I think it would be more just cutting into kind of phasing out Ty Johnson and splitting between Zonovan and Carter. But honestly, James Cook is the one kind of to me that's like the most interesting.
Got your eyebrows raised, right?
Yeah, like he kind of like took over this week and got like a lot of the work, and
weird just snap percentage though.
Yeah, and but yeah, I like Akers as well. I like the matchup like this week.
Yeah. Matchup base this week, I'm saying.
Right, yeah, for sure. The one thing with Akers, I will say, I had seen a stat out there where Kyron still actually played.
Interesting.
I saw it on there.
Pitt is a college, PGH is a city.
Tell the NFL.
Right. But yeah, like Kyron actually still played like almost all of the 2-minute drill and long down and distance snaps. So it's just they were more competitive in this game than they have been recently. So like that's something to keep an eye on, because if Kyron is still going to play all that work or all those situations, and those situations become more often if they're down, then that's a little bit worrisome. But like I said, this week though, like you mentioned, like he's playing against the Raiders, and the Raiders just can't stop anybody hit through like on the ground or through the air. So it's definitely a nice matchup, and obviously we got 6 teams on bye, so going to need some running backs.
I think James Cook is definitely worth a speculative ad when highest snap percentage of his year, but still 40%. But the wild part, 20 opportunities and 43% snap share, like 14 rushes, 6 targets, and he caught all 6. So Sean McDermott likes to never let us have a clue of who's coming up and what. But it was a good game, and he averaged 4.57 yards per carry. He caught all of the targets. I mean, it was a solid day for James Cook.
Yeah, definitely. I think he has
speculative.
Yeah, right? I was gonna say. I think for him, I think out of the guys on this group, for me, he's like the best one. If you don't need one this week specifically, yes. And like if you're trying to,
this could result in like a playoff money.
Yeah, that's how I feel about him.
Yep. Wide receivers. We got Nico Collins, 29% at Dallas. Treylon Burks, 58% versus Jacksonville. DJ Chark, 16% versus Minnesota. Matchup based. I know we got to love that one. Donovan Peoples-Jones, 55% at Cincy. Robbie, I believe, took the time. I would guess Robbie took the time to say should be 100%.
I did.
You didn't write that, right, Norton? Yeah.
No, I just noticed it.
Michael Gallup, 55% versus Houston. Zay Jones, 53% at Tennessee. And Demarcus Robinson, 12% at Pitt or PGH. Others to check for: Slayton, 61% versus Philly. And Cook, 70% at Dallas. Norton, who's your favorite here?
I'm going to leave Robbie's guy for him. He's top. It's like real close. But I think Zay still, I know he had a clunker, but he had been getting a lot of work, and I love the matchup at Tennessee. Tennessee is like one of the biggest pass funnels in the league. Like they are great at stopping the run, and they are terrible against the pass. Like we saw it last week with the Eagles. I mean, Jalen Hurts had like almost 300 passing yards, I felt like, in the first half. And they were just dropping back and just unloading Devontae and A.J. Brown all day. So I do think Zay, I don't like love Zay necessarily, but I do think he's been playing pretty well, and he's in for a bounce back week after a dud this past week.
Is there any news on Lawrence?
As far as I know, he's good.
Yeah. In the I was watching on Sunday nights. I just leave ESPN for way too long and just let the game replays. And he was coming to the middle of circle. Who'd they play last week? Help me out. They got smoked. Detroit. Jared Goff. He was coming saying Jared Goff. He's like, I'm fine. You could read it on his lips perfectly. Obviously that only means a little bit, but I think he's fine. Came in, played the full second half, looked fine.
We'll take his word for it.
Yeah.
It was just weird. It was a weird injury.
I know Tennessee's secondary just got lit the hell up.
Yeah.
But both, I think the last 2 weeks, Philly last week, was it Cincy before then?
I think
it was.
I'm not sure.
They've been getting torched all season though.
Because there's 2 games that I'm like heavily invested, right? T. Higgins and then AJ Brown, both who I have on tons of rosters. And it was. Their secondary, though, when you look at T. Higgins and AJ Brown, they have similar game styles, right? They're big. They catch contested passes. I think their yards of separation are very similar. Like if you looked at the number, I think if you look to, I was just looking at this and I swear AJ Brown and T were close. And these defensive players were on them. They were the secondary was on them, and they were just making these contested grabs all over. Now Devontae Smith broke loose last week as well.
Yeah.
But I swear, dude, I don't think the secondary is playing awful.
Christian Watson lit him up. I mean, it's been plenty of weeks.
I know. I thought they've been playing better lately and maybe that's just it. Maybe this is just T and AJ Brown's games. They just literally don't get that much separation. So even for a terrible secondary, they're still not getting separation. They're just like, nah.
Yeah.
Yeah. As I say, it looks like the only ones that I was trying to look back through a little bit. It looks like the only ones that haven't really lit them up were the Broncos, but it's Juju went 10 for 88. Mecole went 679 and a touchdown, and Kelsey went 10 for 106 in that game. And Mahomes threw for 446 in that one. I mean, it's Mahomes, but
their secondary is garbage. I'm not afraid to play anybody against them.
Yeah, and like in that game too, CEH had 5 yards rushing, Pacheco 5 yards rushing, McKinnon 4 yards rushing. And Mahomes was the leading rusher with 63. It was just because obviously he dropped back. He threw it 68 times, and then obviously he ran it 6. So they dropped back like 70 some times that game. And like that's what it seems like every team is doing. Like that's why
Philly.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like Jalen Hurts. I'm pretty sure Jalen Hurts
ran like 4 times or 2 times or 2 times. There was a good tweet about Sirianni of how he ran the hell out of the ball the week before. And I can't think of that matchup if one of you can help me. And then the following, he just threw the shit out of the ball against Tennessee. And he just kind of switched those game plans because he knew that Tennessee could stop the run. They are terrible secondary. And then I want to say it was Houston right before.
It was Packers.
Packers rush defense has been horrendous.
Yeah, and then
ran the ball. They had 368 rushing yards that game.
I was gonna say they had 3. Yeah, I was gonna say it was 300 just between Hurts and Sanders.
Yeah,
and he only threw for 153, and then this week he
threw a ton,
pass,
38 or something like that. 38 attempts.
Yeah, and that's why like I think like with
the opportunities should be there.
I think they're gonna drop back to pass so much because that's how teams have been beating them.
So it's definitely a DFS consideration too. Robbie, is there any others that you wanted to touch base on here? Obviously, you have given your whole heart out about DPJ.
Yeah, we don't need to
want to continue doing it.
No, we don't need to talk about him.
Okay.
One name that I'm super interested in rest of the season is Michael Gallup. I really think he, if you have him and if he's available, go get him. And I truly think he could be that piece you get late in the season, you plug in, kind of like Christian Watson, that kind of player that you can plug into your flex and it'll catapult you into the playoffs and through the playoffs. He's getting that chemistry back with Dak. I talked about it a little bit yesterday. He's coming off the ACL injury. It took him a little bit to get back in the swing of things. Dak was hurt. Dak's back. Now they're finding their rhythm. It's taken a couple weeks. The past 2 weeks, he's looked great. And he looks like the Gallup of old. So he can be a very nice piece moving forward.
And to your point, it's Houston. And what we just mentioned about Tennessee, how the offense funnels through passing. The opposite is for Houston. The offense funnels through rushing, and they don't really have to pass. Yes, we are going to talk about tight ends. They're actually up next. Michael Gallup versus Houston might be weak because they might go up and just be done, right? Like it might not be much, but
that's why I said rest of the season.
Yeah. Goes Jacksonville, Philly, Tennessee. That's his playoff schedule. And like one of the early things I would say about Michael Gallup is like, how much is Dak going to get around here, right? Like we got Tony Pollard, we got to feed Zeke, we got CeeDee Lamb and Dalton Schultz. Like who's going to suck about this? But if you're playing Jacksonville, who is pretty good offensively, keeps in games outside of Detroit, then you got Philly there. That's going to be either 7-9 or 40-37.
Yeah.
And then you got Tennessee where we were just talking about. So like, that's amazing playoff schedule for.
I mean, we've seen Dak do it, right? We've seen him produce Dalton Schultz having a good year, CeeDee Lamb having a good year, and Amari Cooper and Gallup. Like we've seen him produce with multiple weapons and the weapons be fantasy relevant. They
just run a little
they
bit.
Like to, I mean, they can get into the point where they're throwing the ball 40 times a game and also
I think
having
these games will make them
rush attempts be up there as well. They can get a ton of plays in. is kind of what I'm leaning at. If anything, I think it kind of hurts. I don't want to say Pollard, but Pollard, which sucks. If they get these weapons on the outside producing at a very good clip, how they can, it could also take away from Dalton Schultz. But hopefully Pollard's obviously involved a lot.
Yeah, I think Pollard I think it's Dalton before Pollard. Pollard was the starter last week. But I think what you're saying is this schedule is juicy for them to be in competitive games where they should be throwing a ton. Let's get a tight end and we'll go to Dynasty after that. Tight ends. We got Greg Dulcich, 37% versus Kansas City. Evan Ingram, 43% versus Tennessee, at Tennessee. Hunter Henry, 35% at Arizona. Tyler Conklin, 32% at Buffalo. And your baby, Daniel Bellinger, 2% versus Philly. Yep. Who you love here, Robbie?
Of this list, what's available? Evan Ingram. Like Norton said, I think they're going to throw a ton. They're terrible. They're terrible defense against the tight end. I think he's due for another solid week. I think he's a safe play. Hunter Henry's interesting against Arizona. We know how bad they are against the tight end. And then kind of my outlook rest of the season, I love Danny B.
Yeah, first week back was this week. And he got about
Good
5
game.
receptions. Yeah. No yards. Norton, you have any that you wanted to add or talk about specifically?
So I love Ingram call too. I've always been higher on Ingram as is. So I love the matchup. I love him this week. I love Dulcich. Like he was awesome the first 3 weeks, and then he was not so good.
Can't do it.
Dude, this past week he had a 38% target share, 42% air yardage share. So listen to this too. He's only the second tight end under age 23 to ever record a target share above 35% in the past 10 years. It's only been the second time in the past 10 years that any tight end his age has done what he did. So it's like, and Sutton with a hamstring issue, Judy just coming back. They're playing against the Chiefs, so they're going to have to drop back to pass more than often.
Have to.
Like, I love Dulcich this week. Honestly, I honestly am probably going to be borderline top 5 for me this week in my ranks. Wow. Like, it's going to be pretty. I might have him 5th. Like, that's how high I am.
And just so we're understanding correctly, to get tight end 5, you need about 10 points.
I was going to say I was going to say it's not like it's a
50 stat line. Will get you there.
That'll do it. That'll do.
You're right with that, Norton. It's just I agree with what you're saying.
Robbie does not like Dulcich.
It's not Dulcich. It's not Dulcich. It is.
You hate the situation.
The entire offense as a whole. How do you really anticipate them?
They're going to have to.
The field? Just because they have to doesn't mean they're going to.
Have they really gotten blown out in games though, Robbie?
Because of their defense.
Yeah, so I mean they're going to have to try. They're going to have to attempt.
I know. Like
what's Kansas City versus tight ends? Don't worry, I have Dulcich on a ton of my teams, so I will check. It's been rough. It's been
bad.
12th. They're 12th against.
I kind of, for me, when it comes to like, especially matchups against tight end, like unless you're like a very outlier one way or another, like top 2 or 3, top 5, good or bad, like basically in that range, I kind of don't really care too much. Like I'm gonna be like more looking at the overall offensive environment. Because especially because things can get swayed so much. Like if a team has played like the Chiefs, you're saying they've allowed the 12th most points or the 12th best?
I just went. I think it's 12 first being. If it said 1, that means they're strong against tight end.
Okay, so they're 12th best, like they're 12th strongest. But here's the thing: they don't have to play Travis Kelce. Like they don't have to face him. Like so, like that. If they had to face him twice already, like then that number could be skewed. You know what I mean?
Oh, right.
Like,
yeah.
Like,
I see what you're. I get.
They never have to face him ever, obviously, because he's on their team. So and they
played Mark Andrews. I think
that's about it.
I think.
But that's
Unless-
This
why
offense,
it's a little noisy too. That's
this offense has scored over 20 points twice this season,
twice.
It's-
Hey.
and it was
it's brutal.
21 and 23.
it's brutal.
Yeah, I just
I'm
I
gonna
like it. I think you'll
give
get.
you this question. Are you answering that, Robbie? Sorry, I cut you off on your
Oh
thought.
yeah,
Higbee
I
and
would drop
Conklin. Should I
Higbee.
drop one of those for Bellinger?
I would drop Higbee. I think Conklin has the better upside.
Yeah, that's kind of
What
where
if
I'm at too.
Baker actually starts though? You know he loves his tight end.
Does he?
I think.
I don't think he produces anybody. He
Tommy
averages
Tremble?
180 yards a week.
He's so brutal, man.
Yeah,
brutal.
especially with what's going on in LA, I would go drop Higbee, pick up Danny B.
Yeah, I would too. Especially because like
Is Dulcich out there though? Would you go Dulcich over?
I'm assuming
Robbie's
he's
like,
not.
no.
If
Robbie,
would
would
do-
you go Dulcich
this
or
week,
Bellinger?
I'm Dulcich over Bellinger
Danny B.
with the matchup. Rest of the season, I'm Bellinger over Dulcich. But
ooh, he's getting spicy.
What if Dulcich puts up like another 8 for 80? You would still be Danny B over Dulcich, huh? Oh, he's not there.
we could talk about it after that, but again, it'd be so matchup based and what's going on.
Would you do Hunter Henry over Danny B this week?
Probably.
So Hunter,
That's that juicy
probably-
Arizona.
yeah,
I mean, Danny
think-
B's got Philly, right?
yeah.
It's
That's
a tough matchup.
Yeah.
And that
And
kind of game,
divisional.
the game script that I'm kind of looking for in that game is going to be, I think it'll be a really low scoring game.
It could be.
Yeah, that's
could
just
be.
kind of how I see it dragging out.
Let's talk Dynasty, boys. So I wanted to kind of bring some common dilemmas that Dynasty teams face and myself face. Just general questions. You know, we've done player spotlight. We've talked about players. At this point, we're kind of past most trade deadlines of Dynasty leagues. I know there's some that don't have them. So really just kind of want to start talking about like some strategy. And the first question is there a point of the season that it is too early or too late to start a rebuild / all-in push? So like to make that decision, is there a point in the season that's too early or too late to do that?
Well, too late would be after the trade deadline.
Thank you for that.
Would be my guess.
Guys, I'm going to start a rebuild. Who wants to trade? I
mine
just
last
dropped
week.
mine.
Yeah,
I dropped mine.
Meet me up
You
at 3 in the
dropped
morning and we can drop and pick up at the same time.
Yeah.
Is there? That's a good question. I would say I think it really depends on like injuries and that kind of thing. Like if you lose some of your key players super early, you can look to sort of move on from the older players that still have good value and try to build that way. I don't think there's really a time frame. It all depends week to week. If you're in the middle of a playoff run, which unless you're like 2 and like if you start 2-6 or something like that, then you can kind of look at it and start breaking down. But I think it takes so long to get into, if you're out of the playoffs.
Well, and I'll go to you here, Norton. But just to paint the picture a little bit, think of it the other way too. Like week 3, I started buying, right? I started selling my picks. I think that might have been a little bit early, but I faced some luck by not experiencing some of these injuries. But like, think about that. You're going week 3 and you're like, yeah, I'm making a push for it. My team seems good enough. These are the pieces I need. And like, that's fine, but understand that can backfire bad, right? Like,
Yeah.
how do you feel about that, Norton?
I agree. Like it could definitely backfire. I mean, we've talked about it before with all of us. Like, we've definitely talked about it all before, and where exactly.
I don't have the image available.
Right.
F them picks.
But like, I am always trying to compete as long as possible. I never am like wanting to get into that rebuild mode. Once I finally hit that point, though, I'm super aggressive about the rebuild. Like, but at the same time, I don't think there's ever I don't think you can ever be too early to go all in. But like you said, there is risk involved in it. Like I'll bring up an example for myself.
Maybe like not pushing all of those chips, right? Like not all of those picks. Hold some ammo for later.
Yeah, and like I'll bring up an example for myself a little bit. There's a dynasty league that I won last year, and it's a 10-teamer, but it's 2 tight ends. You start 2 tight ends, and it's tight end premium. And I had Goddard early in the year, and my rest of my team was loaded. But my second tight end was Cameron Brate. I was like, so I was like, okay, I'm trying to target guys. One of the rebuilders was trying to deal away Darren Waller. So I ended up getting Darren Waller, but I paid for him. I got Waller, Mixon, and someone else, but I paid 2 firsts. And obviously Waller hasn't done me anything. And then Goddard got injured on top of that now. So like that's been hurting me. And so like that's a situation where you can buy early on and then get hit with stuff like that. And it's rough. But the thing that's nice is if you buy early enough, sometimes you'll end up getting guys at a discount. Like I got Tony Pollard on another dynasty league earlier in the year before he started blowing up for fairly cheap. And now the price would have gone up. And I'm also a contender. So like that's the benefit of buying early. So
yeah, I think the
price of AJ Brown went up quite a bit too.
For me too, it's you have to be selective at what you're buying, right? So you bought Darren Waller. He's still young. He's still going to be good for a while. So you can be comfortable with those 2 tight ends moving forward, right? Like
that's how I'm hoping. He has he's like, what's that?
He's 31.
I guess
30,
I mean
31. I think he's 31.
Damn, I was thinking he was younger than that.
I thought he was younger.
Sorry, boys. He's a little old because he sat out a year. He was drafted as a wide receiver.
I knew he wasn't like young, but
he's 30.
Damn it.
Yeah, I still feel confident knowing you probably have him for the next few years.
Right? I would think so too.
Yeah, that's how I feel too.
So like if I'm giving up a player,
confident with tight ends at that age.
Yeah, like I'm not trading for right now unless I know I'm in win now mode. I wouldn't trade for like Kelsey or somebody on the back 9.
What's another one? I don't know. Could
Kelsey's
he be good for
an
4
anomaly.
more years?
Like he could go for the next 5 years. We don't know.
I always use the Tony Gonzalez
I wouldn't
example.
try to trade for an older player unless I knew I'm all in.
Yeah.
So
and that's like the good thing about like trading for Travis Kelce. If you're like, I'm all in, and you're like, I'll buy Travis Kelce. I'm just trying to play for this year. Then you end up having him for 5 more years. Like, wow, this worked out.
It's funny you mentioned Kelce because in one of the leagues I'm in, I'm a rebuilder. It's more of a keeper league, so we don't have the thing, but it's still like you're keeping multiple players. And so Kelce was one of my keepers heading into this year, and I'm out of it. So I was targeting like guys that were contenders that have younger pieces. So I traded away like Kelce plus, I think I gave him I think it was Jeff Wilson a couple weeks ago. It was Kelce plus Jeff Wilson for Jamar Chase at the time. And he was pretty good at receiver. Obviously Chase was hurt at the time and he's a contender and he needed a running back. He needed a tight end. So like that was the kind of situation where I was like fine giving up and he was fine doing it, knowing that he's like contending this year.
Yeah, that's there's always that fine line. Guys like Kelce, who I'm willing to take the gamble on, not only to compete this year, but I'd be like, man, you're just look. I hate the phrase, but Kelce is absolutely a generational talent at his position.
Yeah, for sure.
Where you're like, I'm buying that you'll play till 36, 37 and be just as good with Patty Mahomes. You just hope that his body holds up. Next question I had is kind of leads right into this. What's the best way to value these picks? Like, what's the best way to value these first rounders, second rounders, third rounders, other leagues at 4th, 5th? I don't know if it gets as far as 6th. There's been a lot of hate on Keep Trade Cut, KTC. Why I don't know why I can't say those letters. So I personally use Keep Trade Cut as a baseline, but even when I look at it, like I mentioned earlier, I paid for Joe Burrow on Keep Trade Cut. I overpaid so heavy. So how do we value first rounds? Do you try like what is your best approach? I'll start with you, Norton.
I mean, you know me, F them picks. You know what I mean? But,
So it's really like you're going out and getting whoever you want, anyways. Whatever it takes.
for sure.
That's the value.
As long as the way I see it is with like first round picks. The way I look at them is like I try to like look at what guys are coming in at the time, and obviously if it's after this year, it's a lot tougher to really determine. But if you're looking at like this coming year, and you feel really good about a certain like group of guys, maybe the top 7, top 9, whatever it is, whatever you feel comfortable with, like I'm fairly hesitant to deal away like that range. Like if I think of the pick, my first round, like in the first round pick, for example, is going to be in that range, pretty hesitant to deal them away. Unless it's
you think that they're better than.
Right, exactly. Like unless it is like for me, like I love Joe Mixon. I love the situation. I love the offense. I love how much he gets used in the pass game. Like I loved Joe Mixon in general. Like, and he's still 26. Like I think he's going to be effective on this offense, like tied to Joe Burrow and for multiple years. So like I was okay giving up a first round pick, knowing my first round pick was probably going to be mid or later to get Mixon. Now, if I was like a situation where
you're competing, so it was like one of those things you're sacrificing that first to compete this year, but also you're like, yeah, I think I got a couple years out of this.
Right. And then but if I was not competing, I wouldn't do that because like obviously that like I would feel like the running back I got at the top end of the first round could be just as good, maybe better. I mean, especially if it's a Bijan or whatever, like if you like situations like that, like it could be just as good or better very soon and have years on them. So like, it's really obviously context dependent for me, but like, and then once it gets after, like, I think I tweeted it out in this offseason of this group of this past year's class, there was like 7 to 8 guys that I was like, okay, like really, really wanting to draft. After those guys were gone, when I was in like slow draft, whether it was like startup slow drafts or like my rookie slow drafts for Dynasty leagues, I was heavily aggressively trying to trade away the picks, even if it was late first round. I just didn't feel comfortable. Like Sky Moore for me, I mean, you guys know I always mess around about Sky Moore, but like Sky Moore, I wasn't as sold on him. And
I was sold heavy.
Yeah. And
Twitter confused me with all those videos.
Most people were, and the thing is, he could still be good. Honestly, I'm not like writing him off, but like people were very, very sold on him heading into the year, and he was getting pushed up, pick 8, 9, right around that point, and he was outside that group for me. So like, once I got to where all those other guys were gone, and like Olave was near the end of it, he was usually going like 6, 7 in that range. Once it got outside of that group, I was like trying to capitalize on that Sky Moore hype, where I wasn't buying into it, but I know other people were. So I was like, okay, I'm going to trade for like next year's first plus, or like, you know, a player that can help me now. Right. And then it's now I mean, if someone said, hey, give me this coming year first plus for Sky Moore, you'd be like, no, get out of here. Like, so that's the kind of thing like I try to do, like, and especially I think it's like awesome to wait until you're in your draft, especially if you're doing a slow draft, like a slow rookie draft
where you could talk through it.
Yeah, because during that time, everyone wants to draft, so they're like really hyped on the picks. The players are getting so much buzz in camp. Everyone's the greatest prospect there ever was. So like, it's
I
like
did it this year. I bought into the second round though, like twice.
Dude,
I just wanted to draft.
Well, that's the thing is people just want to draft. People get excited about their guys. They want to be right on their guys, and like. We all do it. I mean, I mean, I was huge on Jalen Reagor a few years ago, so I can't even like.
I saw your tweet about that recently. Probably dude. The past month or so.
It was bad. It was rough. I made a.
It looked great this week.
Right.
Catch. I actually had that catch, and I was like, "Is that JJ?" I didn't realize it was him, or I actually think I thought it was KJ. That's who I thought it was.
Yeah. But yeah, that's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah. Robbie. So like. Talk to me how you view these, but maybe put an emphasis on how you view 24 and 25. So a couple years out, how like it's hard to. So what do you do when you're looking at those?
Like,
in the
same,
if somebody's offering them to you or you're trading,
I think they're nothing is what I think. To be honest,
you have all your picks. You keep them all the time.
I'm trying to trade them away. No one wants to bite. I'm in the same camp. Like, unless I know I have a top 6 to 8 pick coming my way, I'm willing to sell them for whatever, not whatever I can get, but for a talent that I see as going to be on my team for a couple years. That I like buying talent that I have seen produce in the NFL. That's what I like to do.
Yeah.
It's such a crapshoot taking a rookie and hoping that he becomes something great, unless you have like a top 5 pick where you you don't know.
Even
Obviously,
then, that's not a guarantee.
I mean, look at Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence was hands down the number 1 overall pick coming out, and everyone thought he was going to be the next Peyton Manning, right? Like, and he's not. It just is what it is. Like, they have to fall to the right team. Everything has to work perfectly for these, like Baker Mayfield. Everything has to work perfectly for even the number 1 overall pick to produce at a top tier level. So if I can trade away those picks and get a talent like DJ Moore or those kind of players that maybe are on a down year that I have seen produce at a high level, that I anticipate getting back to that level. So that's kind of how I view those, like the 24, 25s. Like, if I can shop a 24 first and get DJ Moore, I would do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I'm really similar with both of what you guys are saying. I think I don't know if this is possible because you both sound this sucks because we're not getting any different perspectives, which is not fun. But like, and I go in with the picks. Like, if I like somebody, here to your point, Norton, sent 2 plus a player, and I don't want to name the player, 2 second rounders, I think both 2023, and a player for Sky Moore earlier. Sometimes it backfires, right? That one backfired on me.
Yeah.
But other times it really lands. Like, I think I did a second and a third and a player for Joe Mixon and Zeke. Like, I'll send picks, and like I'm not saying anything to you, Rob, about this, but like, I will send them and I will keep going until they tell me yes if it's somebody that I like. Like, no, I will legit.
I sent early in the season. I think I sent a second for David Njoku, right? Like, I've seen the talent is there. He looks like he can be an elite tight end. He hasn't produced at that level,
anyways.
But I bought on him.
This is tight end premium, right? This is the dad bod league.
Yeah. So that's how I view it. Is I'm going for players that might be undervalued at the time that I anticipate, that I have seen the talent. I think they're talented. I know they can produce in the NFL, and I'm not worried about it. And maybe they're getting to a better situation. I was in on David Njoku because Watson was there, right? So Watson came in. He hasn't produced at a good level. So I'm going to trade for that player now, hoping that he pans out later because I know he can still produce.
Yeah.
I think that's a better gamble than drafting somebody in the first, second round.
Yeah.
Unless you have a top 5, top 6 pick.
Yeah. I was going to say to that point, I pulled up like the ADP just of 2 years ago. The rookies, and Dobbins was 5th. Akers was 7th. Henry Ruggs 9th. Jalen Reagor 10th. So that's 5 of the first round as is. You get into the second round, you had Antonio Gandy Golden, Denzel Mims, Zach Moss, Visca, KJ Hamler, Brian Edwards, Keyshawn Vaughn. Yeah. Like,
is there any gold? Is there any nuggets in that second round?
There was Michael Pittman. JJ was mid to late for. He was like 8th. Higgins was like borderline. He was some leagues he was going in the second. Some he was in the late first. But like Ayuk was in the second. Ayuk, Michael Pittman are the two like play like aside from Tua and Herbert, which they weren't going in second in Superflex, but like the reason they're in second here was obviously 1 QB leagues. But yeah, I mean, really only Ayuk and Michael Pittman. Other than that, because Keyshawn Vaughn got pushed up heavy as it went on because everyone was hyped on that, and so yeah, it was like basically like 8 or 9 of the picks in the second round didn't pan out in just within 2 years. And like, that's why for me, like we mentioned, I'm fine selling those away because it's more than 50-50 shot. It's not going to work out. And if I get a guy that is going to help me now, like that feels better than someone that may help me later, but probably won't, and probably just end up getting cut anyway.
Yeah.
I think the last question I want to ask about Dynasty, and we'll save some of these for next week. It perfectly segues into it. What is your word? I know you both are F them picks, right? Like your word of advice, but you both have picks for 2023, whether it's one Dynasty or the next. What's your word of advice on landing these picks? Like, what is your process throughout the off season on evaluating talent, deciding if the situation that they landed in plays a role or not? Like, how do you determine who you're going to take? Like, is it just consensus? Like, what are you doing? And who wants to kick off here?
Yeah, I mean, I could start from me. I watch a ton of tape if I can't. Like, obviously not everyone has the time to do it. I watch a ton of tape, and I try to follow people that I trust, that I know are good evaluators of talent. And I take their word of advice. And if they're talking somebody up, I'll go look at the tape and see if I agree with them. So like, that's why I was decently high on Dame Pierce preseason. It's because the tape showed he could be good in Florida. He didn't get the opportunity, but when he got the opportunity, he was really good. He was running through people like he does now in Houston. But again, to that degree, you can have your players that you really like and you can go for them. The top 5, I think that's where you have to kind of just hone in on, okay, these are the consensus players. And these, like BJ Ryan and the people coming out that... Well,
I didn't mean to cut off your thought, so I was trying to say it and let you finish. But what if you decide okay, consensus is this person? You still want to do the own process that you're doing on that, because if you want to trade down, Brian did a great move this year. Brian traded down. Although he passed up on Kenneth Walker, he knew that was the pick. He traded down. I guess that's not great, but traded down for Olave, and it ended up being right in that sense. Like, he went. But
did he know he was going to get Olave?
Yeah, he said, "I'm trading down because I'm going to draft Olave." And I think I think 7 was the very strong. That's where Olave is going.
Yeah, but again, I agree with that. But you have to have the, I guess, evaluation of. There's always that group of.
That's what it was too.
I'm just kind of throwing 5 out there, right? Like.
Yeah, in this case, there was that group of 6 players.
There's always the group of studs.
So if Olave went, he knew he had a backup plan.
Correct. So exactly. So if he didn't get Olave, he probably got Treylon Burks or Garrett Wilson.
Where did he trade down to?
I think it was 7.
Okay. Yeah, I was just looking back because I was looking back at my tweet. Had mentioned you guys where there was a tier break, and for me it was at 7. I had Breece in his own tier, and then I had the next 6 guys in a tier. And it was Drake London, Garrett Wilson, Kenneth Walker, Treylon Burks, Chris Olave, Jameson Williams.
Yeah. So that's what it is, right? For me, the consensus of, okay, these are the studs. These are the guys that if you can't get one of them, then it's a crapshoot. And that's what I'm saying. If
traded down to 8.
Did he? So who
traded down to 8?
A little risky.
Kenny Pickett snuck into an
if draft. Was it Superflex?
It is Superflex, yeah.
That's understandable, I guess, a first round QB, but
it's crazy. I would see. If I was Brian, I wouldn't have done that.
It is risky. It is risky unless you felt like someone was just going to take a QB because it's Superflex and he's a first round QB. But
I mean.
It is risky for sure.
Well, I'll have to ask him.
There was no consensus.
He knew he was getting Olave. He was I'm going Olave. I'm pretty confident he'll be there. I am curious as how he understood that Kenny Pickett was going ahead.
Unless
who took Pickett?
It was Tyler, but it was auto drafted.
The only thing I can think of is if I don't know.
It was auto drafted. Yeah.
Does he?
Which is a whole nother component, right? We didn't even expect him to miss, and he was auto drafted. Go ahead.
That is straight wild. I mean, I know one of the guys in one of the dynasty leagues I'm in. He loved Olave, and he traded down a little bit, but I think he just traded down to 5 because he was nervous about him going later than that. And like, so he was like, he had like 2 and 3, and he traded the 3 down to like 5 and picked up something small. But he wanted Olave. He was going to take Olave at 3 anyway. So he was like hoping that he felt like he could get him at 5 and pick it up. But like, yeah, but that guy, that's the thing, is that guy, it was like he was asking around everybody, and like obviously people could lie to him and give him smoke screens and stuff, but I wonder if Brian did the same thing, kind of like judging what people are gonna do.
Maybe he talked to Tyler, and Tyler said he was gonna go with Kenny Pickett, and he like put him in the queue.
Possible.
That's one
but
thing.
Doubtful. Tyler was very gone. Anyways, it was interesting, and like I think that's the hardest part, is evaluating like, who do I take with this pick? I was about to say, Norton, do you have a preference on how you would do this when you're drafting?
So usually for me, like I also, how Rob said, I try to watch as much tape and film and things like that, and that I can, to do as much research and watch for myself to see. But obviously, we only have so much time of what we can and can't do, and it's not like can't do it. We aren't doing it for a living like some of the people who are. So like the people that I trust that are good, I'll look at them. I also really, really like a lot of the guys that put out like a lot of the charts and tables and things with like all the metrics, and like, because I'm a numbers guy, so like I love
following some of these guys, the Devy guys, the Dynasty, the heavy Dynasty guys are very good follows. And
yeah, a lot of them, like if they're very analytic based, you can see they have like really good, like I think Hayden Winks was doing some with it, and like it had like really, really good like prospect grades and like things like that, mostly based around like breakout age, like early declare, like all these things that factor in, that they've found that are very important when it comes down to it. So like those kind of things, I look at a lot of those charts and kind of see where guys are, and like usually you can come up with a general consensus too, like just from doing all those things combined.
It's Treylon Burks all day.
Yeah.
That was the number one on Twitter.
Yeah. So like,
I don't think it's wrong either. We don't know.
Right.
The hill kind of sucks.
Yeah.
So it's like,
I mean, it also, to your point, Mario, like it really does. It can be based on where they get drafted. Like, look at Drake London. I still think he could be the best wide receiver talent that came out of the draft. Garrett Wilson's definitely, it's him and Garrett Wilson at 1A, 1B for me.
That's how I had, like, for me, I had Garrett Wilson 1, London 2.
I had London 1.
Okay.
But then he gets, he got drafted to Atlanta.
Yeah.
And I don't think anyone really predicted. It's hard to predict, like, okay, they're going to throw the ball 12 times a game. Like, I don't think anyone can predict that.
I've actually,
I was gonna say, make me feel good.
I moved London up above Wilson because of the landing spots, and I had them that close in talent. Like I had them, they were, to me, like it wasn't like I was like, these guys are in separate tiers talent wise, and then just because of the landing spot they jumped up, because that's one thing I don't think people should do, is like definitely a wide receiver specific, like really, like landing spot matters less than running back. 100%. Like talent matters more, but like when you got to have guys in a similar tier of talent, then to me, like landing spot can be a tiebreaker. So like,
and to both your point, Garrett Wilson was the going to Jets. We were expecting a full year of Zach Wilson, and we didn't even make it.
Right,
and it wasn't good.
Was atrocious with Zach Wilson. If like Norton, if Garrett Wilson went to a team with a good quarterback, then 100%, like I would have catapulted Wilson above London. Like that would have been an easy move.
For sure.
I like Drake London ahead because Mariota was coming in. I didn't think it was going to be as bad as it is with how few attempts they throw the ball. But in the back of my mind is, okay, they're playing for next year. They're going to draft a quarterback, a number 1, hopefully number 2 quarterback off
Ritter.
The board. And then you have, and I know what Zach Wilson is. We didn't really like Zach Wilson coming into the season. So my thought was, okay, I might have to suffer a year with Drake London not being great, but okay. And then hopefully a quarterback comes in and catapults him into elite level.
Yeah. I honestly jumped, like I said, I jumped London to 1 for this year specifically because I thought they were going to be a better offense than the Jets, and I thought he was going to have more opportunity, like less, because I was so high on Elijah Moore too, heading into the year, and I thought Corey Davis was serviceable, and Corey Davis has been serviceable when healthy, but like I was like, okay, I don't love Zach Wilson, and they already got a good talent in Elijah Moore, a serviceable guy in Corey Davis, whereas now I was higher than consensus on Mariota. I didn't think they were going to run the ball 90% of the time, and I thought London was going to have a chance at a lot higher target share. Like, so.
The target share is there.
It is. Oh, it is. It is. It is.
That's 5.
That's yeah. But yeah, so like and that's the thing is like, because I had him Wilson. I had it like Wilson. I had it Wilson, London, Burks, Olave, Jameson. But then I switched London and Wilson for this year when I saw the landing spots.
Yeah, no, I think it's I think both of what you guys are saying is the Twitter dudes watching your own film is really, it's also fun.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It's a fun part of it.
It's pretty much your favorite part. You can highlight. There's highlight reels all over on YouTube. So if you like somebody already, you saw they had good college stats, go watch their film and see like, do they pass the eye test? But also following some of these dynasty guys. And if you guys ever need a recommendation, we have them. We follow a ton. So let us know and we'll drop the names.
Yeah. I like that a lot. Like I said, I follow a ton of those guys that really break film down, and like that's what they do full time, that kind of stuff. And when they kind of say a odd player that I haven't really heard of, or like someone mentioned Dameon Pierce, and that's what kind of got me into looking at his tape.
Was it Smalls?
No, this was real early. This was pretty early. Someone mentioned that.
Played the outro music too early.
Let it roll. But yeah, just
sorry.
If you follow those people, and they
if you're not already following us on Twitter at DadBodFS, DadBod Fantasy Squad, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and then we'll post all the recordings Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Robbie?
All the major streaming platforms.
For myself, for Norton, peace. Oh, and follow Norton at Norton0723. Sorry, buddy.
You're good.